How we doing, everybody? Finally got back up on channel here. Traveling a little bit this week. I've had some highs and lows as the energy is, we came out of the blue moon. Where was a time that once in a blue moon, many things can happen. And I've noticed that the fall and the rise on some situations that have happened, which is reoccurring, and many energy fields that are trying to stay in the same, but as so many that have changed. We're coming into a retrograde. Later on. As today and in the last couple days, energies shifted in another direction and going within inside yourself. Working on inner situations that keep arising, in many people's lives right now, and there's constantly going on right now, and it's more intensified in a lot of ways, and people's minds get into, these situations. And as I've been sitting here, observing and watching, what it's like when you get into a bigger city, or a bigger environment of people, even if it's in a restaurant or it's on the street or it's in your home. There's many situations, of different types of energy and people, when they collectively get together, and how something could happen in a direction and then turn in another direction, walking into the room. My one of my cohort co-captains here that have been traveling with me, Winnie. She had to cross over the bridge this week, and had to take her home. She had been struggling with some stuff that was going on, and I was doing everything that I could with energy work, and giving her all the right kind of care and stuff. And she was starting to lose weight, and losing stuff going on in her woman regions of a dog. And all the different energies and different places that I was trying to get her into, to give her the peace and time that she needed. And notice that what the effects were on her, just on a little tiny animal, what it does to us humans. And it's just unfortunate when, right now, our biggest situations is that there isn't a whole lot of help. We've had many generations of that have up and come here, and we have not put the right kind of schooling, teaching, direction. Things have fallen by the wayside. And the biggest energy at this moment that seems to be plaguing lots of people is the currency. It's not the currency energy of what you hold and carry, and the worth of yourself, and what you have to offer. Well, this week I did everything that I could, but just been with all the types of frequencies, energies, and people themselves. We've got this matrix construct. We have a NPC construct, and I'm beside myself and baffled. I've had many animals over the last, decade here, and I'm really lost with the fact that, when it comes time to animals, it is something that is a passion. It's the love, it's the love inside you and the heart that is guides and leads you when you have animals. Many of you have cats, dogs, horses, bunnies, guinea pigs, all the fun little animals. You love the creation out there. I've put out on there just on a quick little short over a duck that came the night that, I was, having to help Winnie, and landed right down at my door with my vehicle and started talking to me. And that's what they do, and it's kind of a message back to me, and, understanding that, there's situations that are going on, and I realize that the duck didn't have his mate either. So, we get separated and we get lost in many relationships. And these little creatures, they need a lot, and they need the unconditional love. They need that help. And when, most people are, conflicted and don't know what to do, we turn to specialists or people that can help us. Well, this week it was really tough for me because it became a financial situation. And it's not really about the financials like that I was concerned about. But having the animals over the last many years, I've had some great vets that, have helped along the way. And they've been in it for a very, very long time. And they've tried to teach and help others to, keep in the heart and keep in the mind and not about the pocketbook, to make sure that that animal has the care and, the compassion and love, and knowing that somebody's there that's going to give them everything that they need and the attention, and I've done this for a very long time, and I know what's required, and I've watched from the upper realm down, and we've got a real situation when it comes time to, the medications. The big thing now has been about vaccines. Vaccines have been a very, it's a conflicted situation. But since 2020, there's been, quite a problematic with what happened with the COVID and with the hospitals, what happened with the veterinarians. And many situations shaped and formed and changed that didn't need to happen in the direction that it did. And there's a lot of unknowns when it comes time to the stuff that's just being, simultaneously pumped into your body and what some of the stuff does. I provided a lot of natural remedies and things on the earth instead of manufactured, requirements. But we have to get into it a little bit, down and dirty at times with, how we have to go in. And sometimes, we have to use a few things here and there to, give a little bit of, a bump so that we can stabilize. But we, as humanity have lost, how the bed practice, the side bed table, practice when it comes time to making sure that people are comfortable, and in good hands. It's really become imperative now that that's in the question, and many people are not waking up and realizing, that 2020 was quite an eye-opener, and to see that how medical has handled most situations with most people. And unfortunately, from 50 years ago to today, it has not been the same. It has not been handled in a proper manner. And it has taken her in, knowing some of the situations that she had. She required some fluids. It wasn't that she wasn't drinking water. I gave her lots of water, but she's like working in her little system, and there's certain little remedies and stuff that, the vets can minister and at least stabilize her. And I went to a veterinarian hospital, the Skye Hospital, but unfortunately all they do is they just diagnose. We've had so much analyzation, I've noticed here, not just in the medical world, we'll talk about the construction world, the food industry, many industries right now that we've turned into more of a probing and analyze. Like there's some kind of alien that's touched down and just wants to, flip through things. And we got to, do more of this analyzing, scientific study and all that. Well, we spent a decade, with science and study. And some of it's good and some of it's flawed. But it's really shown its color since 2020. And the procedure is to take your little friend in and have them there, and get the blood test if there's needed, or if there's a an ultrasound or an X-ray, or just the checking the respiratory, the breathing, making sure that there's no restrictions, blockages. I mean, many different little tools can be done to do that. You know, and it's we've been doing this for a very long time. Many go for checkups and all this stuff, and they get their blood pressure checked. You get your they get out the little stethoscope or whatever, and they check your breathing, and get out their watch and check the time and everything else. I mean, that requires somebody stand there, and yes, they need to get paid. But over all the years of vets that I had, they would get into it. When you bring a sick animal in, they would, they wouldn't mess around too much, and start doing what would be needed to, start procedures. And I took her in to get a blood test, and and get that rolling. And I really felt that the confidence and behind it all wasn't there. And so in the situation that was going on, I just noticed that there wasn't a lot of confidence with how this was being, handled and treated. But to find out that I was going to have to take her to a special hospital. So I paid the money that's required, and it's a very steep bounty for not getting a whole lot, and knowing that, her time's of peril, and I had to drive, another hour to go to a special hospital. And as I got to the other hospital, they did call around, for the pricing, and just came back and, told me that this one hospital would do it for an X amount of dollars, and I'm like, well, that's a lot of money for, just to get a few results. And I knew one hospital that I'd been to before with the animals, that I had to do some specialty with some others, and worked with them in another time. And they actually did do a bit of miracles for me. But that's working alongside and making sure that, everybody's on the, same page. So I called and said, yep, bring her in. And I drove out there, and they took her and said, we'll just have a few minutes with her, and then came back and asked me to come in the room and sit down, and we had to, she wasn't in the room with them, and I'm like, where's she? He's like, well, we got her out back, and, brought out a laptop and put that on the ground, and, looked at me and said, it's pretty well going to be the same kind of money this other hospital quoted me, and said, things aren't looking good. And I just said, well, what have we done so far? And we were still in the preliminary, and they wanted to talk about the blood or the, situation, but it was still not in the best of hands, and they were still trying to analyze what they'd gotten from another place. I'm like, do we need to do this again? Do we need to do these checks? Well, basically $2,500, just to get going. And I'm like, she needs to get some fluids in her, and, get some, some kind of antibiotic just to, sustain, so that we can, get the proper testing. And done this numerous amount of times. It's textbook. There's nothing. But that's the case. They don't do that anymore. They want to analyze. They want to get X-rays, ultrasounds, go through all this other stuff. So another $2,500, and it just goes on and on. And so she had what's supposedly called a pyrometry, and an unspayed dog can sometimes have, and ovaries, and situations that can have a little bit of infection. But that is something I will get deep into in another, because as I've been watching the medical system, we do a lot of silly things, and and we've gone on a very wide span parameter on when they start mentioning these things, and usually it's just borderline, it's an infection, and that needs to be treated. And sometimes it could be maybe a tear or something that's happening. But all I know is that, in a matter of a week at 7 years old, and she was very healthy and, very cobby and fun loving little sweet girl. And she just all of a sudden, in a matter of 4 days, just took a turn really hard. And I was really hoping that, the type of care and the people that are there, would be more in the heart and in the soul. And this is where it's gotten very soulless and very glazed over look, and people aren't really inside themselves. And I'm like, there's just more that we could be basically doing instead of bickering. But the laptop's sitting open, and we had to talk about a $12,000 just to go in and do surgery right away. But I knew that she wasn't adequate enough to do that surgery. And then it's like talking about all the medical care and keeping her for a few days. Well, usually once you start ministrating a little dog, you can usually get the better answers as fast as you can. But the faith in veterinarian, and same in hospitals for humans, has become more of a trying thing. And a lot of these vaccines and things that have happened have caused a lot of these related issues. So has food, and these veterinarians, are paid by big companies, which is big pharma. A lot of the foods in the veterinarians, like saying, put your animals on this food. I've been feeding my animals raw, for a very long time. From times I've had shepherds to all different kinds, making up stews and veggies and many different natural things that they would get in the wild, and the vets, do not want to hear about that type of food. They want them on this types of kibbles and situations that a lot of it, and for many of you that, you've had your own animals and had to try with all the different allergies and environments and, home, life, animals that size pick up on all kinds of, different frequencies and energies and will, act in certain ways. And so the food is another big question. And a lot of that food is basically all designed in the scientific and, the medicine, form. And a lot of it is a double-edged sword. And so as I look at, recently, the meats, things like these ticks that are coming out. I noticed that a group called Lone Star, meats and, this ticks and getting allergies and, to the, when you get bit, and to red meat, and this, these symptoms, this gal symptom, it all is basically, if you start, looking into a lot of these information, it reports back to all these companies that, have been doing stuff to meat and industry. Animals out in the wild have an opportunity, to find their food source, and as we have conventional animals at home, they don't have that same kind of ability. We're there to give them what they need. A lot of the meat and stuff that we have vaccines and all kinds of stuff in it, pumped into this. There's antibiotics pumped into our meat form. We have ticks that are basically falling out of the sky, supposedly coming down in box loads, which is like, it's downright, demonic. I was down in Houston, a few months ago and watched a couple older planes fly over, that were spraying mosquitoes and all kinds of other bugs. And I've got videos and pictures, and I'll see if I can put one up here, as, through the segment here. You know, through the segment here. But big pharma has been the biggest thing in the food industry, especially when it comes time to animals and human. You know, a lot of you aren't even getting the types of care you would need in the hospitals. You know, all this vaccine, it was a big thing to put vaccines in everybody. You know, taking care of a big world problem that really actually didn't ratify anything. You know, and then we've got farmland that's being, massacred at the moment with all kinds of bugs and sprays and toxins. We have the airspace that's being sprayed, with toxins and everything. And it's like, and always like, it's always about the science. It's always about this. Well, there's these very high conglomerates out there at this moment in time, the Gates of the world, Bill Gates, and many individuals that are in behind the scenes of all this stuff. The Rockefellers, many that got into the medicine world of it. But not all antibiotics were bad either. And not every single little thing was there. It's, some of it came from natural. But once we got into, the manufacturing, and like a lot of these meats right now are manufactured. We got 3D printed meat. We've got, laser. We've got, synthetic. We're doing with fruits and vegetables. We're playing in all these labs and seeing how far we can push the envelope. With an animal of the size of what a French bulldog is, 13 to 16 inches, anywhere between 15 to 26 pounds on an average. That's getting inundated with the environment, with all the different types of anomalies and energies and the food, their home environment, every little thing causes some kind of allergic or natural reaction. And more animals and more things are getting these allergies on a regular basis now because of the amount of stuff that's being inundated through our water, through our air, through our food. And like I said to you before, fed raw. And I've been feeding raw for many, many years. It took away a lot of the allergies and changed the environment. There's many different options that are out there, and it's really a lot better for you. Most of the animals today are getting a lot of teeth decay, and a lot of us are got the same kinds of issues and all this stuff. But it's a lot of stuff that's been put into our foods and our systems that are doing a double whammy on us. But I just like said, now I've lost the faith in veterinarian world at this moment. $12,000 just to do a minor operation that turned into a bigger situation as her declining. And it forced me to have to make another decision because I wasn't getting through, that we weren't even administrating some of the stuff that is needed. And they're just there with a credit card machine and a book with somebody telling them what this is going to cost, and basically standing there at a tariff between your loved one and you from going forward to doing everything that you possibly can. And society is in this matrix world now, and I'm on the outside of it, observing with many. And I'm not here to play test with my own personal animals, and I'm not here to play test with your animals. And many of them got to be taken home. And they're taken home over the Rainbow Bridge. And for many of you, it hurts and it's sad, and I know how you're feeling. And it's been going on for a very long time, and I don't like to do it. And I don't want to have to do it. They're supposed to live to be a very ripe, long age. And I'm just like going, there's got to be a change when it comes time to people with their handling, including human beings. You know, since COVID, now you go into a hospital and all they give you is just some aspirin and some Tylenol and tell you to go walk it off. But there's been a lot of higher rate and infections and all kinds of stuff that's happened here recently, and so that means that there's still some really dark evil that is plaguing on the earth right now and plaguing through people, and you've lost yourself basically sitting there with the book. Everybody's worth something, but big pharma and human beings and animals have become the biggest target of the biggest money and the biggest fraud when it comes time to our well-being. And for the ones that that have been with me, that's what we're here for. And this is why it's like blowing the top off of it. And there's so much out there at this moment that is being told in the truth. And a lot of people are shying away from it. Because certain things aren't understood. Nobody wants to look deeper into it. There's it comes from a subliminal program of growing up, staying in with the others because this is just always the way it's been. But we're using frequencies, we're using all kinds of stuff that keeps that type of mindscape going on. And that was the biggest thing about coming, is about the consciousness to rise. But the consciousness is falling in this larger mass right now. And it's just very unfortunate that, when it comes time to you're at the mercy of what your pocketbook is and what they're going to do for you. But even then, I've had a couple other situations. And I was hoping that I wasn't going to have to, do this at this point. I wanted her around for a very, very long time. But every once in a while, like I said, we need that little bit of extra help. But right now, there's no help in humanity at this moment. There's nobody coming here to save you. But there's many things here, but they've been, directed, diluted, and, downright just been taken right off the table. And so is the mind and everything that's there in the conscious level to be there to help, and from 10 years ago to what a situation, and I had a English bulldog that had a similar but a worse case, and it was a $1,500 situation, and she, I know you use discernment, but she bled out, but they brought her right back. This one here, she wasn't in that kind of situation with the same diagnosis. And they wanted $12,000. And the other one there, she was already put in, and they were already working away on her without any qualms or anything. And it wasn't about the money, but this time around it's about sitting here. And there's been a couple other situations where I've had to sit there in between all of this, and I'm not getting the right kind of individuals. And so we're building a society now that's so numbed and not thinking and have lost. And I'm asking why you're even in the business if you're not, there for the care of the animals, because that's what we're here for, and for the care of the people. And we've really lost our way on what this looks like. And these big corporations, big conglomerates, they don't give a care about any of this. And that's what a lot of these veterinarians have gone to. That's what all this food is, all the medications, everything. It's basically, pay to play. One big game at this moment. And that's what I keep hearing. This is a big game. But me personally, I don't like that, because I'm not playing a game. I'm not playing a game with you. I'm not playing a game with anybody. And I've had to be back here on the earth because the imbalance has come. And it makes it harder because this is where we're going, and it's not a good way for society to be heading into in these times. It's because everybody at some point needs some kind of help. But we're supposed to also help ourselves, raise our consciousness, and raise our health, raise our wealth. Of that health, that's our currency. So we don't get into these. But I've just noticed, like I said, with the energy in the world today, and all the stuff that's going on, and nobody wanted to deal, nobody wanting to handle anything, can't handle anything, can't deal with anything, going through all kinds of different scenarios that you're going through. Understandable. But when it comes time to, animal and human, health, for the ones that still are struggling, that need that, we need to know that there's enough of care and comfort for them. But I've been watching this whole hospital business, for the last decade. But, the last 25, 30 years, the hospital practice has been going down. Bigger buildings, bigger this, more equipment, more everything, but still getting the same response. It was like in COVID, the amount of people that lost their loved ones, a lot of situations that went on, how things were treated, bedside practice. Half these people that make these decisions out there aren't even anything to do with medical. And now that it's become such a freaking big business, and corporations instead of people that are there, nurses that care, but they're told basically that they're not allowed to do this, not allowed to do that. Well, basically you're pretty well throwing the book out. It's kind of like the Bible. It's like the 88 books that are needed to be here. So they were the roadmap, the guidance of all the stuff that's happening. And in some of those books right now, a lot of this stuff is happening. So they ripped off half the Bible out and said, here you go. There's remedies. There's all kinds of different things that are going on. In the medical world, that's what they did. They tore the medical book in half. And they gave a few remedies, gave a few things, and then you went to school and you got taught. Many of you are just going there to get the bedside practice, thinking about the schooling and everything. But the first thing is where it's come to is it's all about the financials and not the well-being of animals. It's just like out on the earth right now. All the, all my wild animals out there. Everything from the sea mammals to the birds, to the bears, everything out there at this moment. They live for a very long time, and sitting to ground. That's why the biggest thing that I jump up and down, that you got to take it to ground and put the energy, and put the negative energy into the ground. And dogs and cats usually go out there on the lawn and try to do all that, but there's been quite a resistance. And I've noticed in the last week many pets that have had to leave the earth right now, and a lot of other animals. It's just telling where the frequency and how people are reacting and acting in these situations. And I understand. Everybody's got to help themselves, but we've got to start really waking up, and and it's become more and more imperative of waking up. And there's been a lot that we can't wake you up. Well, that's not acceptable either right now. Wake up is the most imperative, because if this is what we're going to be doing, going in there, and even these NPCs and these, matriarchic people standing there, I was looking at their faces as they're, saying goodbye to their cats. A lot of you got cats and stuff, and one of the biggest things to you, well, the cats are supposed to live the longest, and they have. I mean, I had a cat until I was, she was 21, 22 years old, many. But, the pets are leaving too early because of all the environment, the food, and all the other situations that are going on, the fear. And we're still living in a fear-based society. And we've got demented, evil people like the Gates Foundation and many out there, the McDonald's industry, all the foods, these meat companies. I mean, look up Lone Star. Google it. Whatever you got, find out more about what this has been about, and this ticks, these allergies, all these things. our food, our vegetables, our fruit. We're really at a time now, that we have to really look. And I always say look in. We have to be, as individuals, looking in for ourselves and finding ourselves so that we can be on the right side of the page. But in a humanity of a whole, in the city places, I mean, everybody's like sharing the brain. And I guess what I'm saying is that I went to one place, $12,000, and come to the next place that didn't talk to the other place. And they're like, pretty well said to me, like the other one, we're in the same kind of money right now. We have to look deeper into all of this. And there has to be a big change in the world. And when it comes time to the medical, the veterinarian, and them calling themselves these hospitals, we have to really do our discernment when it comes time to hospitals, all this information that's coming out there, this media, all of the above when it comes time to a financial paycheck, what it's costing, because the costs are outrageous when it comes time to administrating for animals. Pet insurance is not where it's at either. It's only for the first 3 to 4 years. After that, it's not a good place for this. It's become a money business propaganda. And the love, the unconditional love, and the passion, and the control is beyond what it should be. And you should not be ministrating and working on humans and animals if you don't have that. And these big pharmas and all these other big money conglomerates have no business being in the world of health of animals and people. And they should not be up there in the skies spraying ticks. They should not be putting stuff in meats. Governments. We should, when it comes time to the fear, when it comes time to the medical, when it comes time to the veterinarian, it's not a big bank. We've got to come to a point where we're not, charging these types of horrendous amount of money for a little bit of syringes, for the bit of medication, for the bed help, for all the little things that need to be. It's become too much. It's been going on too long. And if you're not in the heart space, you're not in the compassion, you shouldn't be ministrating to anything without the knowledge and without the knowing of what it is to care for people, to make sure in their time that there's the comfort. And this big bank and business needs to end when it comes time to these hospitals out here that they call these veterinary hospitals, but they're not. It's just a big name. It's like the big name, big pharma. It's like these big idols that are out there that are, spraying the skies. All your money's being financed to do this just to put you in a health, a downward spiral. And we need to really start looking in to look out and really look at our own situations and what have happened around our surroundings for many, and what we've had to go through and why this is costing and becoming more and more of a cost. But it's becoming the cost of humanity and the mammals and animals and everything on the earth. Because I don't want any more spraying in the skies. I don't want any more food being poisoned. I don't want water to be poisoned. I don't want anything for animals to be poisoned. I don't want you to be poisoned. And these individuals are complete demonic, demoned, and sick, pathetic. And is downright gross and disgraceful of how the animals and how people have been handled on the earth at this moment. God is the government. God is the governor. He is the one, the only one. The heaven, the Almighty, the Omega, Alpha, the beginning and the end. And these individuals that are in these practices and in these businesses and in these conglomerates and all this other stuff, putting all this garbage on the internet, on the news, everything else about what they're going to do. Well, they've been in all these TED Talks, all these different situations that keep rising for people and literally telling you what they're doing. Your health is not somebody else's wealth. So, and I don't want to have to keep taking animals and humans back over because these individuals that have no business being in the business of health care any longer, that isn't there. And the energy and the frequency of the collective has got to start changing and start to rise so the health doesn't come to this point. But the smothering of smaller creatures are feeling all this energy and this effect. And this fear and this idolizing and watching these others do this sick stuff, they need to be addressed. This has been talked about for a while, and it's truth and it's real. And I'm downright saddened that I had to say goodbye early because the decision was that I wasn't going to get the right treatment. And at the moment, it wasn't about the money, but we weren't even in the right frame of mind to make sure that we were working towards in the procedures to having the pet comfortable. And there was nothing more I could do. It was one of the hardest things of my day, of my life. And for many of you, I've been there to see what you've gone through. And it's not fair. Yeah, I know. The world isn't always fair. That's what I hear, but that's not what was designed. But these people are not who they are, and they're not acting like true people. And so you need to find the real people, the ones that are supposed to be in the business to help and not the ones that are just listening to others. You got to use your discernment. You got to start using your common sense and where your heart is in. And I wouldn't be following people around, that don't have the best interest. And to start looking at the fact of why this is now costing amount of money, which most people don't even have that kind of money when they're in the peril of what it is when it comes time to themselves and to the animals. Especially when the animals can't even talk to you, which you can understand what's going on, but in the heat of the moment, there's a reaction. But when you're getting hit with an opposition that you can't even fathom, the outcome is never very good. I know this is a tougher topic, but I've been sitting with this. Many of you want to hear about this and have been calling for me to talk. But I've been trying to get the collective to be more engaged, and the collective is now turning harder against. And when this happens, the energy falls, and people that are in the environments really start to feel that energy. And we're kind of in the end of the precipice with this. But I know there's many out there that have all the abilities. But corporations scientists, analysts, doctors of analyzing or should not be the ones that dictate what it is for the care of an animal or human being. Because we're not here to be treated with the money. We need good hands, good heart, and a good soul to be there, even if it's just a comfort. I will touch more again, but I hope you have a blessed, wonderful day. And for many that have gone through this scenario, I'm with you, I'm working with you, and I'm working with others. And this is the awareness, and hopefully energetically, we can see a change in this and get rid of this corporation, this construct, this ruling, and these individuals that are trying to play God. I am the one, and the one that governs, and there is nobody else in the law and the government that should be involved in what it is for your health and your well-being. The land was here for you to come and be here and have the experience, at least have the fighting chance. So I love you very much. Condolences to many. Have a blessed, wonderful day. We'll see you on the next one. And don't forget to like, share, and comment. Let's hear what your thoughts are. Bye for now.